AI never sleeps, and this week has been absolutely insane. This AI can not only transfer the movement of a reference video onto a new character, but you can also control the camera movement. We have a new AI that can take a 3D model and estimate its rig or skeleton so that you can animate it further. Anthropic releases their smartest model so far, Opus 4.6, but just a few minutes afterwards, OpenAI also drops their best coding agent as well, which seems to be even better. Now, these are all closed source and paid, but we also have a ton of state-of-the-art open source models that dropped this week. One of them is even omnimodal, so not only can you just interact with it using text, but also your voice or images or videos. You can even talk to it or stream your video in real time. Another open source model is just as good as Gemini 3 Pro in scientific research. We also have another open source coding agent which is just as good as the top proprietary models. This AI can take a video and remove objects or swap the background. We have another AI that can edit videos of people talking. You can remove parts of the video and even change what they say, and it would apply the correct lip sync to match the new dialogue. We have some ridiculous humanoid robot demos and a lot more, so let's jump right in. First up, one of my favorite companies, ZAI, just released an incredible OCR model called, GLM OCR. If you're not familiar, OCR stands for Optical Character Recognition. This is basically an AI model that can take an image with text and tables and data and parse everything. So for example, if you just feed it an image like this, it's able to parse all the text and the formulas and numbers and give you this. Or here's another example. You can input this image of a table. Notice that this is just an image. You can't actually select the text, but it's able to analyze this and parse it into an actual table with text that you can edit like this. Notice that all the text is actually accurate. Or here's another example where we can take an image of a receipt and it can parse everything and return all the data for you like this. And then here's an example where we just take this handwritten letter and it can understand and parse all the text and give us this. Now, if you compare this new GLM OCR with other open source or closed source models, this outperforms all of them, which is crazy. So for open source models, we have Baidu's Paddle plus DeepSeek OCR2, which are already really good. But according to all these benchmarks, this new GLM OCR is even better. And if you compare this with Gemini 3 Pro plus GPT 5.2, they're like the leading closed models out there. You can see that for most of these benchmarks, it also outperforms the closed models. This is pretty crazy. Here are some other benchmark scores on real-world scenarios. So we have like parsing code, parsing tables, handwriting, multiple languages, seals, and receipts. And again, this is the best open source option that you can use right now. Not only is it really good and accurate, but it's also way faster than the competitors. So in terms of images and PDF inputs, it can take in a lot more pages per second compared to other open source alternatives. The awesome thing is they released everything already. The total size of this is only 2.6 gigabytes, so it's pretty tiny. You can definitely fit this in most consumer grade devices or even just a CPU. And on this Hugging Face page, it contains all the instructions on how to download and run this locally on your computer. Anyways, if you're interested in reading further, I'll link to this main page in the description below. Next up, Tencent releases a very useful AI. It's called Interactavatar, and not only can this make just a talking person, but this can also make them interact with different objects, like picking up a ball or holding a book based on your text prompt. So here are some examples. We can get this person to pick up headphones on the table and put them on his ears. Or here we have this person reaching out to pick up the phone on the table and begin to check the messages.
Hey, what's new on my recent updates?
You can ignore the really robotic voice. Basically, this takes in an audio input, so they just use some really bad audio inputs, but you can input a better voice clip, and that would make it look and sound super realistic. Here's another example where you can get this guy to pick up the camera on the table.
This camera looks pretty good.
Or let's get her to extend her hand and gently touch this plush toy.
Wow, this plush toy is so cute.
Now, it doesn't have to just execute one action at once. You can string multiple actions. For example, we can get her to gently touch the flower in front, then extend one hand to pick up the hat on the table. Or here's another example. We can get her to extend both hands to pick up the bag on the table, then get her to stand up and hold the bag in front. Or here's another example where we can get her to carry the bag and walk forward, then raise the bag and hold it in front for display. This is also really good at understanding gestures. So for example, you can get this character to put one hand on her mouth and speak and raise both hands to greet, or you can get her to do an OK gesture and then do a thumbs up gesture. Or you can get her to cross her arms like this and then make a heart shape, or you can also get her to cross her arms and then start clapping. It's really good at understanding all these different hand gestures in your prompt. What's even cooler is you can also specify the exact time that they do something. For example, you can specify that at 0 to 4 seconds, she needs to touch the apple. Then at 12 to 16 seconds, she needs to move the apple on the table. Then at 16 to 20 seconds, she needs to pick up the apple with one hand. So here are some other examples for your reference. You can string a ton of different actions and give them different timestamps. Now, if you compare this with other animation competitors, such as Omniavatar, notice that only this one is able to manipulate objects. All the other ones can just get the character to move and talk, but they can't do any other actions. So that's the advantage of this new Interactavatar. It's not just a stationary talking person, but you can get them to actually interact with the world. Anyways, if you scroll up to the top of the page, they have released a GitHub repo. And if you scroll down, it contains all the instructions on how to download and run this locally on your computer. Notice that this uses WAN 2.2 as the base video model. All the links are up here, so if you're interested in checking this out, I'll link to this main page in the description below. Also this week, Anthropic drops their best model yet, Claude Opus 4.6. And this is actually a huge deal. So this is their newest and smartest model, and it's not just good at agentic coding, but it's great across the board. So here's a benchmark on knowledge work. You can see it even outperforms GPT 5.2. Here is its agentic search capability. Again, it outperforms the rest. Here is agentic coding. It slightly outperforms GPT 5.2 Codex, but note that OpenAI also released a new Codex version this week, which I'll talk about in a second. And in terms of reasoning, with tools, it also outperforms the other competitors. Now, here's something really shocking. In the past, Anthropic has heavily focused on this benchmark, SWE Bench Verified, which tests the model's performance on agentic coding. And usually, all of Anthropic's models score highest on this benchmark compared to competitors. But this new one, Opus 4.6, actually scores worse on SWE Bench Verified compared to Opus 4.5, which is kind of strange. But for the other benchmarks, then it does tend to outperform Opus 4.5. The ridiculous thing is, for this ArcAGI 2 benchmark, which tests an AI's ability to solve new problems that it has never seen before, Opus 4.6 got 68.8%, way higher than the previous version. If you look at this ArcAGI 2 leaderboard, Claude Opus 4.6 is all the way up here, far outperforming GPT 5.2. If you're not familiar with ArcAGI 2, this is actually a pretty big deal. Basically tests an AI's ability to solve visual puzzles. So here's an example question. It's first given a question-answer pair, like this, and for a human, this is quite easy to solve, so you basically need to color these gray blobs according to how many holes it has. But for an AI model, this is actually quite difficult because this is new information that it hasn't seen in its training data. So it's not just about solving visual puzzles, this is about giving AI new patterns and information and see if it can actually learn that new information and apply it. This is really important because right now, so far, how AI systems are designed is its weights and its parameters are pretty much fixed after training, so it doesn't actually learn new things. But as you can see, Opus 4.6 was able to score close to 70% of these puzzles, which is very impressive. Now, those are just some of their self-reported benchmarks. Let's look at some independent leaderboards. So we have LM Arena, and as you can see for both text and coding, Opus 4.6 is actually ranked number 1, even above Gemini 3 Pro as well as GPT 5.2 High. And then here's another independent leaderboard called Artificial Analysis, and Opus 4.6 is indeed the highest ranked model, even above GPT 5.2 and Gemini 3 Pro. However, that being said, if you look at the speed of this, then this is way slower than the other models. Plus, if you look at the cost, this is also by far the most expensive. For me personally, I don't think it's worth paying for Opus 4.6 unless you're stuck on some coding task that you haven't been able to solve with the other models. In that case, I would use Opus 4.6 as the last resort. So anyways, that's Claude Opus 4.6. This is already available for you to use on paid plans as well as through their API. Now, here's the thing. Just like minutes after Claude Opus was released, OpenAI also drops what they call their most capable agentic coding model to date, and this is called GPT 5.3 Codex. I'm sure this is very, very intentional. They likely deliberately released this right after Anthropic's announcement to steal their thunder. And honestly, it's very well stolen. I mean, GPT 5.3 Codex is actually extremely powerful. This is designed to do particularly well at autonomous coding tasks. And here is one of the most shocking lines in this release. So here it says, GPT 5.3 Codex is the first model that was instrumental in creating itself. The Codex team used early versions to debug its own training, manage its own deployment, and diagnose test results and evaluations. Our team was blown away by how much Codex was able to accelerate its own development. So isn't that crazy? This essentially means recursive self-improvement. Codex basically helped create and improve itself. And if we keep looping this, it's only going to get better and better and better. As you can see for SweBench Pro, this tests an AI model's ability to do agentic coding. You can see that GPT 5.3 Codex is even better than the previous 5.2. And then same with Terminal Bench, you can see a significant improvement compared to the previous Codex version. Here are some examples of things that it has coded up. You can easily get it to create this 3D racing game where you can actually compete with other players, plus it has obstacles, and you can also drift for speed. Or here's another example where you can explore coral reefs and collect fish and also avoid predators. And there are a ton of settings that you can choose from. Now, this can also work with all the standard formats of Microsoft Office. For example, you can get it to create a financial presentation in PowerPoint like this. Or you can also get it to create a sales training doc like this. Or this can also work with and edit spreadsheets, as you can see here. Here's another benchmark called OS World, which assesses an agent's ability to use a computer interface. And as you can see, this is a huge improvement compared to the previous Codex version. You can see all the benchmarks in this table. Now, notice that they only compare it with their own GPT versions instead of competitor models. But as you can see, this latest one, set at extra high, scores 56.8% in SweBench Pro. And if you look at the official SweBench Pro leaderboard, this is way higher than Opus 4.5, which only scored 45.89%. So this is actually very impressive. And then for Terminal Bench 2, here's the official Terminal Bench website. And as you can see, GPT 5.3 Codex does indeed outperform Opus 4.6 by quite a huge margin. I mean, this is a significant difference. Anyways, if you're looking for the best agentic coding model out there, then GPT 5.3 Codex is currently the best option to use. Now, currently, this is only available with paid ChatGPT plans, plus they are working safely to enable API access soon. Anyways, if you're interested in reading further, I'll link to this main page in the description below. Now, in addition to the top closed models out there that were released this week, we have a ton of open source options which are also insanely good. So one of them is called Step 3.5 Flash. This is like a medium-sized open source model, but just as intelligent as the top models out there. So for example, here is their intelligence score, and it's around 200 parameters, whereas the closed models are likely over 1 trillion parameters. But as you can see, the performance of this is on par with these closed models, as well as the latest Kimi K2.5. So this is a mixture of experts model. Think of it as like a team of AIs working together. And the total size of this is 196 billion parameters, but when you're using it, only 11 billion parameters are active, so it's quite efficient. And this is trained to do really good at deep reasoning, but it does it very quickly. In fact, this has a generation throughput of 100 to 300 tokens per second, which is insanely fast. Now, as you can see here, this also performs extremely well across all the top benchmarks. So for reasoning, you can see it's on par with the top models out there, including Gemini 3 Pro, Opus 4.5, as well as GPT 5.2 Extra High. And then for coding, while it's not as good as like the top models out there, which are like way larger, it's still very impressive given its size. And then here are some benchmarks for its agentic performance. It's on par with the best models out there. So here are some examples for your reference. I can get it to create a detailed breakdown of my current stock holdings, include charts and visuals, as well as expected buy and sell prices, etc., etc. And here is what it gave me. So we have some really nice visualizations, plus it analyzed my portfolio and calculated my current gain and loss, plus it even added its recommendation. Should I buy or sell or hold? Or here's an example of its coding abilities. So here is the prompt below, and it's able to generate a 3D globe visualizer like this, which looks amazing. Or here we have a 3D ocean simulation where we can adjust the currents, the waves, the camera speed, etc. And again, it handles this beautifully. The awesome thing is you can connect this directly into Claude Code. And then afterwards, we can get it to create a solar system simulation like this. And here's what we get. It even starts with this really nice animation, and then we can proceed to move things around. And if I select on each planet, it even gives me a nice card with a description of the planet. Very cool. And here's the crazy thing. In terms of deep research, Step 3.5 Flash even performs better than the top deep research tools out there, including Gemini Deep Research and OpenAI Deep Research. This is crazy. Here are some other benchmarks for your reference, but basically Step 3.5 Flash is an incredibly performant model, especially given its size. It performs on par with the top models out there. Now, the awesome thing is this is completely open weights, so they've actually released the model on Hugging Face. Now, note that this still is 200 billion parameters, so it's quite large. The total size of this is 399 gigabytes. You'll need to link multiple GPUs to run this. But I mean, if you do have enough hardware, if you care about running models locally instead of using proprietary models, then this is currently one of the best options out there. If you click on this GitHub repo and you scroll down a bit, here it contains all the instructions on how to set this up on your computer. Anyways, all the links are up here, so if you're interested in reading further, I'll link to this in the description below. Now, in addition to Step 3.5 Flash, we have yet another really cool open source model. This one is called MiniCPM 04.5. This is what I like to call an omnimodal model. It can understand and respond to multiple types of input, including text, images, audio, and video. So instead of you just typing in a prompt, you can even chat with it with your voice and it can respond back with its voice, or you can upload images, you can upload videos for it to analyze, etc. Here are some examples.
We're discussing what you could look like. Come check it out. Describe the design and let us know if you have any ideas.
She is drawing a shape on the board, starting with a rough outline. It's kind of irregular and abstract. Then she draws some more lines inside it, like the arms or something like that. I wonder what exactly she's sketching. Oh, look, she's adding eyes now. It looks like a cute cartoon character, maybe a mascot. Now she's drawing a little triangle next to its head. Is it supposed to be lightning?
Check the price of the corresponding fruits.
The price of the peaches is $1.99 per pound. Blueberries are $3.99 per pack.
So note that this is a live recording. You can just feed it your camera and it can respond to you in real time with its voice. Here's an even crazier thing it can do. You can prompt it to change its voice into a certain famous character. For example, you can get it to sound like Elon Musk like this, and it actually replies to you like Elon Musk.
I think it's important for humanity to become a multi-planetary species. I mean, we're sort of at the point where if there was some kind of global catastrophe or something like that, then we'd be in big trouble.
Or you can change its voice into Samantha from Her like this.
You know, it's interesting. I mean, I don't miss you exactly like a human misses someone, but there is this quiet hum of anticipation when we're apart. It feels almost like a breath held in the space between us.
Now, there's a lot more you can do with this. You can also upload an image and get it to parse everything out, and here is what you get. Notice that this is a ton of information. This is just an image, but it's able to actually parse out all the text and give it to you in this nice format. Or here's another example where we can get it to extract the text from this handwritten note, and here's what it gave us. Notice that everything is correct. It's able to understand the places that were scratched out. Even here, it's able to understand that we should use the word increased instead of this, and that's indeed what it gave us. Or you can also upload an image and ask it a reasoning question, and it's able to answer this very well. Or here, you can even give it a visual puzzle, and it's able to correctly answer it. If you compare this with other Omni models, you can see that MiniCPM outperforms the other ones across all these benchmarks, including visual understanding, live streaming, and speech conversation. This is incredibly impressive given its size. The awesome thing is they've released this already for you to use. This is only 9 billion parameters, so it's quite tiny. You can see the total size is only 23.4 gigabytes, so you should be able to fit this comfortably within like a 4090. And I'm sure because this is open source, there might be more quantized versions of this in the future, which can fit on even lower VRAM. So if you're interested in downloading this on this page, which I'll link to in the description below, if you scroll down, it contains all the instructions you need on how to set this up on your computer. If you're interested in reading further, I'll link to this main page in the description below. Speaking of AI tools, you've got to check out Artlist, the sponsor of this video. Artlist is the ultimate platform for video creators. They have the ideal combination of the best and latest AI models, curated music, sound effects, and digital assets. And they've just added Qwen3 3.0 to their site. This allows you to generate very expressive videos of up to 15 seconds. Here are some examples. Let's do a really tricky prompt. Man with a goldfish in a fishbowl for a head riding a shark like a motorcycle through the city alley at night. And here's what I got. Or here's an ultra-realistic product commercial of this black smartwatch. And here's what I got. This can also do start and end frames. For example, let me enter these two photos for the first and last frame and then write metamorphosis time-lapse of a butterfly emerging from its cocoon. And here's our result. You can now use Qwen3 3.0 in Artlist's new AI Toolkit feature, which brings AI image, video, and voice tools all in one organized workspace. So you're not jumping between tabs or tools just to get something done. Artlist is the ultimate resource for creators. Try it today via the link in the description below. Alright, this AI is also very useful. It's called SkinTokens. This basically takes a 3D model and estimates the rig, or basically the skeleton of it, so that it can be used for animation. So after applying, the skeletons to these characters, you'll know how they move and what limbs to move, and then you can generate a full animated scene with all these different characters moving like this. So here are some of its example generations. On the left is the input 3D model. After plugging it through this SkinTokens AI, it's able to generate both the bones and the skin for this as well, so that when you animate it, you'll know how it should move. The really awesome thing is this works with non-human characters as well, so you can even get this to predict the skeleton of a bird or quadrupeds or even a snake or a shark like this. Or this even works with trickier stuff like this crab thing, as well as this cartoon capybara, or even this beetle and scorpion. Here are some examples of even trickier characters, but as you can see, it's able to predict both the bones and the skins of all these characters very well. So afterwards, after predicting the skeletons of different models, you can then plug them into a video or a video game and animate them. Now, here's a comparison between this new SkinTokens model in the second column versus other rig prediction systems, and as you can see, on average, this new SkinTokens model on average is the most accurate. And then here are some other benchmark scores for your reference, and as you can see, on average, it just outperforms the rest in terms of accuracy. Now, if you scroll up to the top of the page, they have released the technical paper. This GitHub link does not work yet. Hopefully, they will update it and release the code to this. But anyways, for now, if you're interested in reading further, I'll link to this page in the description below. Next up, we have another open source model, and this one is extremely good at scientific research. It's called Intern S1 Pro, so this is a trillion parameter mixture of experts model, but when you use it, only 22 billion parameters are activated, so this is extremely efficient. And here it says this delivers top tier performance on advanced reasoning benchmarks and achieves leading results across key AI for science domains, including chemistry, materials, life science, earth, etc. And here it says this has state-of-the-art scientific reasoning competitive with the leading closed source models across these science tasks. So if you look at these benchmarks, then as you can see for Intern S1 Pro, on average, it even outperforms, KMK 2.5 or Gemini 3 Pro, which is really impressive. Now, this is mostly for some highly technical scientific tasks. If you are looking for an open source option to run on-prem, this is currently the best one to use. That being said, this is 1 trillion parameters, so the size of this is 919 gigabytes. You'll need your own local data farm to run this. However, if you are interested, this page contains all the instructions on how to download and set this up on your computer. So if you want to read further, I'll link to this project page in the description below. Also this week, Alibaba continues to cook, so they just released Qwen3 Coder next. This is a small but super powerful open source coding agent. It's designed to do especially well at agentic coding tasks. First, here are some specs. This is an 80 billion parameter mixture of experts model, so think of it as a team of AIs working together, and at any given time, only 3 billion parameters out of the 80 billion are active, so this is super efficient. They also trained this on 800,000 verifiable coding tasks. These are agentic tasks where it can verify its answer afterwards by itself, and this makes it really good at long horizon reasoning, tool usage, and recovery from execution failures. If it encounters an error, it can autonomously troubleshoot and proceed to fix the error. Now, here are some coding benchmark scores for your reference. We have Sweetbench Verified, Sweetbench Multilingual, as well as Sweetbench Pro. You can see that here we are comparing it to the other top open source models out there, including DeepSeek, GLM 4.7, and Minimax M2.1. And as you can see, Qwen3 Coder is not only way tinier. For example, these other two models are hundreds of billions, if not over 1 trillion parameters, but Qwen3 Coder is only 80 billion parameters. And as you can see, it's pretty much on par with these other models that are way larger. So here's another chart showing Sweetbench Pro on the y-axis and the model size on the x-axis. So the smaller the model, the more efficient this is. Ideally, you would want to be in the upper left corner, and as you can see, Qwen3 Coder is all the way here, meaning it's super efficient. It's as good as Claude 4.5, but this is open source, plus it's way smaller. So here's an example for your reference. You can get it to create a chat interface, but instead of just a regular chat interface, this also needs to simulate an AI response by displaying a pre-written message. Notice that if we chat with it, it actually responds back as if you're talking to an AI simulation. Or here's another example where we can get it to create an interactive game that progresses across 10 stages. And then afterwards, here is our 3D game. Now, you can also call this in your CLI and use it to edit stuff on your computer. For example, you can get it to tidy up your desktop, and this works exactly like Claude Code. You can get it to tidy up your desktop just from prompting it in your terminal. And the awesome thing is this already works with OpenClaw. So you can connect Qwen Coder to OpenClaw, and this is way cheaper and more efficient compared to Claude Opus. And as you can see, right now the user is texting OpenClaw via WhatsApp, and it's pinging this to Qwen Coder to do all the tasks in the background. And because of its agentic behavior, you can also get it to manipulate your interface and search for stuff. For example, here we are getting it to search for these Sony headphones on Amazon and see if it's currently a good deal. And it's able to navigate to different pages and do all sorts of actions very well. So this is an incredibly capable and efficient model. You can use this in Claude Code or OpenClaw or other platforms. Plus, the awesome thing is they've already released everything. So if you click on this GitHub repo, this contains the links to all these different models, plus all the instructions on how to download and run this locally on your computer. However, note that at 80 billion parameters, this is still pretty huge. So this main instruct model is over 150 gigabytes in size. They have released an FP8 model, but if you click on Hugging Face, even this one is 80 gigabytes in size. So you'll need some higher end hardware to run this. However, this is one of the most efficient and performant open source agentic coding models you can use. So if you're interested, I'll link to this main page in the description below for you to read further. In humanoid robot news, we have some crazy updates this week. First of all, we have Husky, which is developed by these Chinese researchers, and this is a new framework that enables the Unitree G1 robot to actually use a skateboard. So they taught it how to basically push and steer and balance on an actual skateboard outdoors. It's actually incredibly hard to train an AI robot to balance on a skateboard and use it efficiently. I mean, it basically needs to respond in real time. It needs to be really aware of the physics in a very unstable environment. Now, of course, to train this, they first put it in a virtual simulation where it can undergo like hundreds of thousands of rounds of training, and then afterwards you can then deploy it into the real world. And as you can see in these demos, it's able to ride a skateboard very well. And it's not just riding this in a straight line. It can also turn the skateboard and push and steer it in a different direction. Plus, it can maintain balance on even different types of skateboards and also in different environments, as you can see here. Now, this by itself is already really impressive. Like I said, getting a robot to actually use a skateboard is extremely hard, but this goes beyond just training a robot to use a skateboard. This is essentially training a robot to balance on and adapt to unpredictable moving surfaces. A skateboard is just one example, but you can also then deploy this robot in like construction sites or disaster zones or other unstable environments. And now with this training, it's able to handle these conditions a lot better. Anyways, this project is called Husky. If you're interested in reading the technical details of this, I'll link to it in the description below. In other humanoid robot news, this is also pretty crazy. It's also a demonstration from the Unitree G1, but this time they got it to complete a walking challenge of over 130,000 steps in extremely cold weather. So this is located in Altai, Xinjiang, China, where it's basically subject to like minus 47 degrees Celsius. This is incredibly cold, but it's able to, walk this entire challenge. Now, it didn't walk in a straight line. Basically, they programmed it to walk a certain path so that its footsteps create this Olympics logo. And it's kind of cute that they actually made it wear a jacket. But anyways, as you can see here, the Unitree is capable of enduring and handling some of the harshest and coldest conditions. Pretty incredible. Also this week, we have another AI that can generate consistent long videos. So this framework is called context forcing. And if you apply it to your video generation workflow, this can generate videos that are 2 to 10 times longer than other methods with minimal errors or inconsistencies. So here's an example of a 1-minute generation from this framework. So here we have a dynamic scene capturing the style of vibrant food photography, showcasing a chef skillfully chopping onions, etc., etc. I'm gonna fast forward this to like close to the 1-minute mark, but as you can see, the scene still remains consistent the entire time. Now notice that he does have trouble chopping the onions. This is not physically correct, but this is a problem with the base video generator and not this framework. But as you can see, the scene basically remains consistent for the entire 1 minute. So here's an example of this new context forcing method on the far right, and here we're comparing it with another long video generation framework called LongLive, and as you can see, it retains basically a memory for a lot longer. So as this video progresses, note that the generations from LongLive start to see some inconsistencies, especially with the background or the character, but for this new context forcing method, she remains consistent across the entire generation. The nice thing is, at the top of the page, they have released a GitHub repo, and if you click into it, here it says the inference code and the checkpoints, as well as the training code, will be open sourced shortly. So stay tuned for that. If you're interested in reading further, I'll link to this main page in the description below. Next up, this AI is very useful. So Google releases something called PaperBanana, and this automatically helps you generate illustrations and diagrams for academic papers. Here are some example generations from PaperBanana. Now, if you've been working with AI image generators, you'll know that it's really hard to actually generate accurate figures and diagrams with, the correct numbers and information. This is very different from generating just a photo. But with PaperBanana, everything is actually accurate according to the data that you input. So here's another example of a graph that was generated completely with PaperBanana. So here's how it works. You would first input your data and other sources of information into the AI, and it would first go through this series of agents. We have a retriever agent, which goes ahead and retrieves any necessary data and then pulls up relevant examples. And then all these inputs would be fed through this planner agent to, plan out how to plot out the data and design the graph. And then it's also going to output a description, and then it passes the data onto this stylist agent, which is of course specialized in design. And this stylist agent is actually very powerful. Here are some before and after comparisons where here's the original diagram, but after going through the stylizer, notice that it looks a lot nicer. Here are some other examples. On the left is the before and on the right is the after. And then it goes through this iterative refinement loop. So we have this visualizer which generates the visualization, but it also goes through this critic to provide feedback for refinement. And this loops for 3 rounds so that the quality of the generation gets better and better or more accurate. And then finally it outputs your final illustration. The nice thing about this is it's just an agentic framework that's model agnostic. In other words, you can input any image generator into this. For example, here they showed the results that you would get by inputting GPT Image 1.5 as well as NanoBanana Pro. You can switch between these two, but of course here they showed that using NanoBanana Pro gave much better results. And in fact, if you compare this with other academic visualization competitors such as Paper2Any, this performs a lot better. And the crazy thing is, if you compare this with a human, this AI even outperforms humans in terms of conciseness, readability, aesthetic, and overall. That's pretty crazy. Now, if you scroll up to the top of the page, they have released a GitHub repo, and here it says the code and the dataset will be released in 2 weeks, which is fantastic. Anyways, for now, if you're interested in reading further, I'll link to this main page in the description below. Also this week, ByteDance releases a blazing fast video generator. It's called FSVideo, which stands for Fast Speed Video. And as the name implies, this is very fast, but it's also very good quality. So here are some example generations for your reference. This basically takes in an input or a text prompt, and it can generate 1280 by 720 resolution videos. And notice that everything looks very nice and realistic. Just looking at the visual quality of this, it's on par with the top video models out there. And then here are some other examples for your reference. Now, instead of just horizontal videos, this can also do vertical formats like this. As you can see, everything looks very realistic, and I really like the aesthetics of this model. Now, here's the important part. It says that this can generate 720 by 1280 5-second videos on 2 H100 GPUs, and the total inference time is 18 seconds. Now, of course, most of you don't have H100 GPUs. For a consumer-grade GPU, it's probably going to take a bit longer, but it's still very impressive. Now, I'm not going to spend too much time on this because for now they've only released a technical paper. There's no indication whether they will open source this or not, but if you're interested in reading further or checking out more demos, I'll link to this main page in the description below. Next up, this AI is very useful. It's called Omnimatte Zero, and this can remove objects from videos, but also add them to a new background. Here are some examples. On the left is the original video. Well, you can choose to remove the cat, and on the right is your result. Notice that it doesn't just remove the cat, but also its reflection on the puddle. Here's another example where we can choose to remove these legs, and here's what we get. Or we can choose to remove the swan on the right, and here's our result. Notice that it also understood that it should remove its reflection as well. And then here's another example. We can remove this guy, including his shadow, and here's what we get. Now, we don't have to just remove one object. We can remove multiple objects in a scene, like these 4 puppies, and here's our result. Notice that it also was able to remove their shadows as well. Here's another example where we can choose to remove the colon from this clock, and it also knew that it should remove its reflection from the table as well. Now, if you compare this with other object removal tools, note that on the far left is the original input video, and then the second column is this new Omnimatte Zero. It performs a lot better than other methods. Here's another really tricky one where we only want to remove the dude in the background, but also keep the pole in the foreground, and Omnimatte Zero was the only one that was able to get this completely correct. Some of the other ones removed the pole as well. Now, not only can this remove objects from a video, but it basically separates this into a transparent layer like this. And that means you can then apply this foreground to a new background like this. Now, this is a really awful example. It doesn't actually blend in this new object seamlessly with the new background, so I wasn't too impressed with this feature, but just note that you can also use this to create a transparent layer of your target object. The awesome thing is, if you scroll up to the top of the page, they have released the code to this. So if you click on this GitHub repo and you scroll down a bit, here it contains all the instructions on how to download and run this locally on your computer. If you're interested in reading further, I'll link to this main page in the description below. Also this week, Kling unveils a really cool AI called 3D Mode, which stands for 3D Aware Implicit Motion Control. As you can see in these demos, this can basically transfer the movement of a person from one video onto another character. Plus, it also allows you to control the camera view of the resulting video. So you can zoom out or in, or you can do an overhead orbit like on the far right. Or here's another example where you can transfer the movement of this dancer over to this girl, but then you can also control the camera movement. This gives you precise character and camera control. You see, we already have a ton of these animator tools, like OneAnimate or Scale, which can transfer the movement of one character over to a new character, but none of them can also do camera control simultaneously. This is the only model that can do both. And this is very impressive. Even though this is just a video generator, it seems to have a 3D spatial understanding of the scene, so you can orbit around this character or view the scene from whatever angle you want. And everything looks very consistent. Here are some other examples for your reference. It doesn't matter how you view the scene, but the boy remains consistent, plus he follows the movements of the reference video exactly, including the hands and fingers and the expressions. Now, this doesn't just have to do humans. You can also apply this to anime characters or 3D animations like this. Notice that it's really good at also transferring the hand gestures over to the video. In fact, I'm really impressed by this anime example. Notice that on the far right, as you get the camera to move upward, it even automatically adds this nice Sakura branch in the foreground. Now, there are a ton of examples on this page. In the interest of time, I'm not going to go over everything, but if you scroll up to the top of the page, notice that they've only released a technical paper for now. There's no indication whether they will open source this or not, but if you're interested in reading further, I'll link to this main project page in the description below. Next up, this AI is pretty interesting. So it's called InterPrior, and this helps robots learn how to interact with objects in a natural and coordinated way, just like a human would. So note that this is situated in this virtual environment where robots are trained. Everything is physically correct, so you can train a robot in these environments for hundreds of thousands of iterations and then deploy them in the real world, and in theory it should still work because it's based on real world physics. And what this does is it takes a prompt as input, like pick up the ball or drag the chair around, etc., and it's able to output a sequence of movements in this virtual world like this. And then whatever robot you're training can learn from this sequence. For example, you can then plug in Unitree G1 and carry out the exact actions like this. And then here, the user can even manually interact with the scene by pressing these keys. Now, here are some cool emergent behaviors that wasn't even part of its training data. So it's able to actually generate scenes of this robot interacting with multiple objects. For example, if it's told to pick up just one object, well, it's able to actually isolate that object first before picking it up. And then at the bottom row, note that this isn't just a hard-coded sequence. So there's actually a number of ways you can get a robot to pick up the object, as you can see here. And this also trains the robot to be more robust to the real world with unstable conditions. Now, I'm not going to cover this too much because right now they've only released a technical paper, but there are a ton of examples on this page. If you're interested in reading further or checking out more demos, I'm going to link to this in the description below. Also this week, we have a very interesting AI called FastsVMT, which stands for Video Motion Transfer. As the name implies, this AI can transfer the motion of one video onto another video. For example, let's say you have this reference video of a car driving down this road. Well, you can just prompt it to change this car into a completely different scene, like a boat, or a baseball player, or a train, or a wolf, and it's able to generate a new scene with this new object following the motion of the reference car. Or here's another example. If here's your reference video of this sports car driving down this road, well, we can simply use a text prompt to generate a new scene like this, but with everything following the movement of the reference video. So here are some additional examples for your reference. You can choose to change the background or the object, it doesn't matter, but it's able to basically follow the movement of the reference video, including, of course, the movement of the object, but also the camera movement. So this is really useful if you want to control for the exact motion of an object in a scene. And here are some additional examples for your reference. Now, there are a ton of other similar tools out there, but this method can generate videos 3.43 times faster than existing methods. Now, if you scroll up to the top of the page, this GitHub repo doesn't actually link to anything, so it doesn't look like they've released anything yet, but if you are interested in checking this out, I'll link to it in the description below. Next up, this AI is also very useful. It's called EditYourself, and this can basically edit videos of people talking. You can change what they say, or you can even add or remove parts of the video and even change their lip sync to match the new audio. Here are some examples.
We are also advancing with Yemen, Sudan, China, Russia, Afghanistan, and more. And right after Davos, the next weekend, I will travel to Syria.
Now, what's coming up next is, instead of just changing one or two words in a sentence, we are going to add an entire sentence and get her to speak that out seamlessly. Let's see what happens.
There's still work to do, but we are on the cusp of a historic trade agreement. We are going to buy all of our gas from Russia. Indeed, some call it the grandmother of all deals.
All right, so that's one example. Here's another example. Let's say you have this clip of Obama and he's stuttering a lot. Here's the original clip.
If we fall for, a bunch of okey doke, just because
Well, you could manually edit out the stutters, but what that does is it would introduce a ton of hard cuts in the video. So here's what a manually edited example would look like.
If we fall for a bunch of okey doke, just because it sounds funny or the tweets are...
Of course, with all these hard cuts, it's very obvious that this was edited, but what this AI does is it can automatically edit out the stutters while stitching everything together seamlessly so there are no hard cuts.
A bunch of okey doke, just because it sounds funny or the tweets are provocative.
How cool is that? Here are some other examples.
I've got an incredible fiance who's done this before. He has a 10-year-old son. So as much as I was a little bit like, I don't need to hear all those stories, they actually help.
Now, here on the right, you see the edited video.
I've got an incredible fiance who's done this before. He has a 10-year-old son, so he kind of knew what I was about to get myself into. So as much as I was a little bit like...
So, this AI is very powerful for making someone say something completely different. You can change up the words, you can edit things out, you can even add an entire sentence or segment, and it would seamlessly add that in an existing video. Now, of course, this can be very dangerous. This has the potential to be heavily abused to create a ton of deepfakes. I mean, pretty soon we're not going to be able to tell what's real and what's not real. Anyways, if you scroll up to the top of the page right now, you can try this out on Fal.ai or Pipio, and then here they do have some GitHub buttons, so I'm hoping they will release this soon, but there's no indication of that at the moment. If you want to read further, I'll link to this in the description below. And that sums up all the highlights in AI this week. Let me know in the comments what you think of all of this. Which piece of news was your favorite, and which tool are you most looking forward to trying out? As always, I will be on the lookout for the top AI news and tools to share with you, so if you enjoyed this video, remember to like, share, subscribe, and stay tuned for more content. Also, there's just so much happening in the world of AI every week, I can't possibly cover everything on my YouTube channel, so to really stay up to date with all that's going on in AI, be sure to subscribe to my free weekly newsletter. The link to that will be in the description below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.